Ironically, after all of this preaching about sexual sin, my dad had cheated on my mom for 27 years of marriage, and he left for one of his girlfriends, and it's the best thing that ever happened to my family. He was physically, emotionally, mentally abusive to all of us, and it took me years to realize that, because when you're a kid, the way you grow up is how you see the world. It's just normal. It's just the way things are. On top of that, the cult that I grew up in taught that if the husband cheats on the wife, it's the wife's fault. So my mother and all of us were excommunicated from the cult. And of course, none of that seemed like a good thing at the time for any of us. But it's what gave me my first step into a form of freedom. After my parents' divorce and getting kicked out of the cult, I, on my own, at 17, joined a Pentecostal church. I met people just with slightly more open minds than the people that had been in my life to that point. My father and I became estranged shortly after my parents' divorce. He and I didn't speak too much at all for years. He would send me birthday and Christmas gifts through my mother, and I'd open them and they'd be books on how to be saved from being a liberal homosexual. And so I would cut the title page that he had written a note into it out and then go return it to Borders to get some money back. Maybe I put Borders out of business, I don't know. But my relationship with him was really distant, and I was happy with it. And people kept talking to me. My mother or other relatives would be like, "You're gonna regret it someday when he dies and you didn't have a relationship with him." And then he died, and I said goodbye to him before he passed, and I went to his funeral. I don't wish cancer on anybody. But it was weird. When he passed away, it felt more like a friend's parent passing. Like, I'm sorry for the people that are hurting, but I didn't hurt like a child normally grieves their parent passing. He was so bad for me and my life. He was so bad for my mother. He was such a toxic presence in the world. He said he loved me, but his love was 100% conditional. And he would only ever love me if I fit into who he thought I should be. Who my father is inseparable from who I am, but hopefully very different. And is a constant reminder to me that I have some of the tendencies and the personality traits that he had. I can be controlling and have a temper like he did, but what I want to do is use him as an inspiration for who not to be. When I talk to people about conversion therapy, I'm careful to say most parents don't send their kid to conversion therapy out of hatred. Most parents believe that they're helping their kid. They don't want their kid to struggle. They don't want them to face bigotry or hatred or that queer people do. Or they think their kid's gonna go to hell. What they don't realize is that they're harming their child so much by telling them that they're broken, that's way worse than getting bullied at school for being gay. Your parents telling you that there's something broken with you and that you're unlovable is so much worse than getting called a faggot on the street by a stranger. Love from a parent is so formative to who we are as kids and as adults even. My mother asked me if I was gay. She had heard from my younger brother that I was, and I said yes, that I am. And she told me that she still believed that God thinks that being gay is a sin. And I asked her, I said, "Well, do you still love me?" And she said, "Of course, I always love you." And I told her that was enough. So we had a tolerant relationship after that for quite a few years. But I had 5 younger brothers who all lived at home. And my mother thought that if I was around them, I would influence them to possibly be gay. So I wasn't allowed around them, or if I later had a boyfriend, I couldn't bring him home or anything that might influence them. So My relationship with my family for quite a few years was really strained in a different way once I came out officially. My mother has been on a journey just like I have been on a journey. Hers has been a little slower paced. She still votes for politicians that harm queer people. She still goes to a very anti-gay church. She still actively pursues a very bigoted, hateful faith practice. I'm very sure that my mother would not tell you that she hates gay people. My mother would tell you she doesn't hate anybody. My mother believes firmly that Christians are the most loving of all people, her included. I think that she struggles reconciling what her faith leaders say, but she loves my husband. She came to our wedding. She is supportive of our marriage, at least verbally, and she lived with us for a year and a half. She sees how happy he makes me and that my life is better now than it ever was before. I think that it makes her question things, and that nothing in her life has ever made her as uncomfortable as being forced to question your faith. She is in my life. But she's not marching for gay rights. She's never gonna be carrying a sign saying I love my gay son in a pride parade. I'm grateful for the progress that she's made. It's important to me that I have a relationship with her. I have learned so many wonderful things from my mom, and she is a kind, caring, compassionate person in so many ways, and that's still very disconnected from some of her actions. I'm one of 8 kids. I've got 6 brothers and 1 sister. I have, including a fraternal twin brother. For the most part, my siblings are on a similar page as I am as far as faith and politics and worldview, some less so. So I'm so grateful for the journey that my siblings have been on, and also a good example of the fact that some of them are still on journeys for accepting queer people. With family, just like all other relationships, it's important to set boundaries in your life and to take care of yourself. So with my family, I've had to learn to set boundaries and say, no, you are harming me and this is a hard line and we won't cross this. And then also to give grace. I know how far I've come in the way I look at the world, and I know I've got a lot further to go. I think it's a good example of the importance of being out and visible, is that they have had to question their worldviews and hopefully learn a little bit more about other people that have a different sexual orientation or gender identity than themselves. What's the point in us talking about queer rights or whatever form of activism we use our voices for if we don't hope that people will change? Getting past the trauma mostly involved, I would say the number one contributing factor to me getting past that was to find chosen family and people who loved and accepted me. Therapy was vital, but having people who just wanted me to be happy and exist in the world was, as simple as that sounds, was massive for me.